Last week, we took a look at Community Awareness Day, and this week we will return with more pertinent issues facing our community. Education Today starts now.
Happy New Year, everyone. I'm John Zish with the Armstrong School District. More and more it seems that drug abuse and domestic abuse are destroying our homes and people in our communities. That's why there's Armstrong County Community Awareness Day each year. The goal is to light a fire under everyone, to help them see that standing back and doing nothing allows addiction and abuse to worsen. To talk about Community Awareness Day, which this year was on January 9th, 2006, we have Gary DeComo, a district judge from Ford City. We have District Attorney Scott Andracy from the County of Armstrong, and Lieutenant Tom DeBovie of the Pennsylvania State Police in Katanning. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being on the show. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us.
Welcome to Education Today. Starting with Scott, would you please tell us briefly about yourselves and how you tie into Community Awareness Day?
Sure. Thanks, Jonathan. It's a pleasure to be here. I represent the Armstrong County District Attorney's Office. I, along with Judge DeComo and Sheriff Larry Crawford, were the individuals who began Community Awareness Day 3 years ago. My goal is to bring the prosecution and police end of county law enforcement to the table, to spread the message about Community Awareness Day and the danger of drugs, alcohol, and domestic violence in Armstrong County.
Judge, how about you?
Well, when we started Community Awareness Day, we decided that we needed to have a specific day in our county to raise the level of prevention awareness. I've worked in prevention for 12 years through the schools and the community, and with the help of Scott and Larry, we felt that establishing this day would raise the level of prevention awareness in our community, and it has worked.
That's good. Lieutenant DeBovie, would you tell us a little bit about yourself and your relationship to Community Awareness Day?
I'm the station commander here at Katanning Station, and we cover all of Armstrong County. The reason I got involved is I felt it was important that we need to make people aware that they have to get involved because we can't do this alone. Without the people's support out there, without people calling in and being willing to be witnesses, willing to support victims, our job can't be done. And I thought that's the reason I became a part of this, because I thought the crime's ever increasing, but the number of police officers isn't.
You know, another thing that happened on Community Awareness Day was that secondary students in grades 7 through 12 across Armstrong County got to see a video that the Armstrong School District produced. It shows a former drug user, and it shows how he overcame his addiction and gave a positive message about Community Awareness Day. It also shows a reformed batterer and someone who survived domestic abuse. So let's take a look at that video.
Hello, I'm Magisterial District Judge Gary DeComo, co-founder of Armstrong County Community Awareness Day. Community Awareness Day was created to raise the level of prevention awareness in our county. Every year, each second Monday in January, Armstrong County residents join together in a community celebration of prevention. We are a community united against domestic violence, child abuse, sexual assault, and the abuse of alcohol and other drugs. This year, as part of our program, we have 3 volunteers who agreed to share their personal stories of abuse. Our first volunteer speaker is Zeke Porter, an inmate at the Armstrong County Jail. I have known this young man since he was a teenager. Please listen to Mr. Porter. His story is not unusual. It's a typical story of addiction.
My name is Zeke Porter. I'm 21 years old. I'm sitting in the Armstrong County Jail right now waiting to be sentenced on a bunch of drug-related crimes. I had a good relationship with my parents. I was an honor student in school, always getting good grades. We always went out, did fun things together, family things. Then I started getting messed up in the drugs, and everything just went bad from there. They kicked me out. We wouldn't talk to each other for a long time, and everything just really got messed up. I was 15 years old. My friends came up to me and said, "Hey, you want to have a party? We got some alcohol. We're going to go drink and have fun." I started drinking every day from then on. Then I got worse, started smoking weed, got into Oxycontins, and all of a sudden that wasn't enough. They were so expensive. So I started doing heroin, and I started out snorting it, and it just wasn't enough anymore either. Started shooting it, ended up doing over 50 bags a day. It's about $350 on the streets, and thought it was real fun doing it until I started getting in a whole bunch of trouble. I had a good job. I was working every day. And then all of a sudden when I got into drugs, I wouldn't show up, wouldn't even call off, I just wouldn't go, so I ended up getting fired. And I started robbing people to get my money so I can get the high I needed. I went to rob a gas station and held a lady at gunpoint to get $550 off her. Got burglaries from my parents' house, robbed my friends, my family, and ended up in jail. I don't know, I think I'm still I'm facing about 2 to 4 years. I've been sitting for 9.5 months now, and I'm still waiting to go to court. Your whole body hurts, feels like your skin's crawling, you got cold sweats, you don't want to move, you just lay there for days, you don't want to eat, you don't want to do anything. Just lay there and wait for it to go away. No, the drugs are everywhere. I could walk down the street and get it. There's always people around that have something. I know from where I live, it's everywhere. It's so easy to get, it's unreal. Yeah, I wish when my friends started doing drugs, I wish I would have just went out and found new friends or got a new hobby, did something else. Instead, I stuck around them and then I'm getting caught up in it myself. And for whoever's watching this, I want you to remember, drugs kill dreams. Don't let drugs kill your dreams.
I've talked to hundreds of drug addicts, and most of them started using alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs at an early age, just like Zeke Porter. And remember, with OxyContin and heroin, there is no experimentation. Only 2 things can happen to you: addiction or death. I know some of you watching this video are thinking that this could never happen to you. Zeke Porter thought it couldn't happen to him, but it did. Our next volunteer speaker was a victim of domestic violence and sexual assault. Like many other young women, her problems began in a dating relationship as a teenager.
Okay, I met my abuser whenever I was 15. He was 17. He was a real nice guy. You would never believe that he would ever have turned out the way that he is now. He was in and out of placement. He lost his dad at a young age. His mother was abusive towards him, never treated him right. I don't know if that's why he acts the way he does. Things were going good for a while. I found out I was pregnant, and at 5 months I lost the baby. That's when it all went downhill. I moved into a house with him, a couple houses down from my dad's house, and I don't know, it just all changed. Maybe a week after my son was gone, he wanted me to have another baby. We had to have another baby. He needed his baby back. I didn't know no better. I just wanted to make him happy, so whatever he said goes, you know. So, I ended up pregnant with my son now. He's 5 now, and the whole time I was pregnant, I was fat. I was ugly. I was stupid. If I didn't have sex with him, I wasn't allowed to go to school the next day. I wasn't allowed to sleep in bed. I had to either sleep in a corner with no pillow, no blanket, or I had to sit up all night. If you saw me doze off, I got hit. Whenever we first started dating, he really didn't use, well, he used marijuana at first, and then whenever he got with me, I told him I didn't like that, so he didn't do that. I think it was after we split up, like maybe once or twice, that's whenever he really got into alcohol and cocaine and heroin and Oxycontins, just stuff like that. Every time he would drink, he would think about his dad, or something would come up where, like the time that I'd left and he missed his first Christmas, and it would just trigger something in him, and he would just get mean and just start beating on me. If he was out of drugs, or just, it was always my fault, basically. I don't know what it triggered in his head, but it seemed as soon as he started doing whatever he was doing, then it was all over, and I was getting beat up. My son started getting violent with me. That's whenever I knew I really needed to find a way to get away from him. My son wouldn't listen to me. Every time I would tell him to do something, his dad would tell him he didn't have to listen to me. I wasn't nothing. And it was to the point where the one time I did leave, and I told my son he couldn't do something, and he grabbed me by the neck and looked at me and told me he was going to kill me. He would hit me just downright like he was like his dad. And that's, in a way, that's my fault because I let that go on. And still to this day, he respects me more because I've grown up a lot and I've showed him the right way to do things, but he still has those little times where he is a little rebellious. But that's another thing that women need to understand. If their son, they mostly got to worry about their sons, because if they grow up and they notice their dad's doing that to their mom, they're going to do it to their wives, and who knows, maybe even to their children. And I know that's something that a lot of people, their parents, don't want to see happen to their children.
Our last volunteer speaker is a reformed batterer. Please pay particular attention to the cycle of violence that he describes. Most batterers were abused when they were young or witnessed abusive relationships in their family.
You know, growing up and through that process, that the only outlet I thought I had at times to be able to deal with the violence that was going on there was to get involved with drugs and alcohol. It started at a real early age. The violence was always there as a kid. I remember the first time my dad having a violent episode on me at the age of 6, where he pushed me against the wall. I started using drugs at the age of 7 years old. And it took me a long time before I had even stopped. It was the escape that I had looked for and didn't know how to deal with what was going on in my house, because I grew up in a home where it didn't go outside of the house. It just stayed in the house. You didn't talk about it with your friends. And if you did, you were going to be made an example of. Through that process of growing up like that, I started to hang around and started to gravitate to kids who were just like me. And I didn't know why that would happen on a lot of occasions. You know, the only thing I wanted was the love of my father when I was growing up. His grandfather was the same way. It was always about how you can yell the loudest to be able to get your point across. It was never about communicating. It was about this is my way and that's the only way. And growing up and becoming a teenager, I didn't realize that the inside of me was starting to build a volcano itself, because I had stuffed things for so long and not talked to anybody about it. If you have a chance today and you're sitting there watching this video, look, take the time to talk to someone, anyone, about it. Because if you don't, it's going to be a process that carries on not only later into your life, but it's going to be a process that carries on into your children's lives.
The stories of all three volunteers have one thing in common. the abuse of alcohol and other drugs. However, I want you to remember that in domestic violence, dating violence, and sexual assault cases, alcohol and other drugs are only a contributing factor. The underlying source of the problem is the desire of the abuser to control the victim. Don't be a victim. And remember, drugs kill dreams. Don't let drugs kill your dreams.
That certainly was an eye-opening look. Armstrong School District showed this video to nearly 3,000 students who were in grades 7 through 12 on Community Awareness Day. We asked teachers to guide them in a discussion afterward. We also shared the video with other Armstrong County secondary schools, such as Freeport area, Leechburg area, and Apollo Ridge. Gentlemen, I would like to discuss the video now and get your thoughts about what made it an effective tool for reaching specifically teenagers.
I think Judge DeComo should begin the discussion primarily because he has a personal connection with Zeke Porter.
Excellent.
Zeke Porter, the gentleman in the video, now an Armstrong County jail inmate, first came to my office when he was about 16 years old. And Zeke's story is typical. It's not the exception to the rule. It's a typical story of addiction. Zeke started with tobacco. He progressed to alcohol. He progressed to marijuana, and he progressed to OxyContin. When he couldn't get the pills, and I think he said that in his video, if not, he said that to me personally, when he couldn't get the OxyContin because they were too expensive, heroin was available. With OxyContin and heroin, only two things can happen to you: addiction or death. Zeke Porter was an addict. He is an addict right now in recovery. When he was under the influence and addicted to heroin, he was charged with robbery, burglary, simple assault, all through my district office. And this was a nice young man from a nice family. And it's a typical story of addiction as far as Zeke Porter is concerned. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I think the judge hits it on the head. All three of these stories put a human face on what we've been talking about. I mean, Zeke Porter had the opportunity to make something of his life. Now he's going to state prison. The individual who chose to be a batterer chose to do so very often under the influence of drugs and alcohol. And you see what can be the result of those poor decisions. And finally, we heard from a victim, someone who actually has been victimized by individuals who abuse drugs and alcohol. These are human faces, these are real people, these are people we know and we deal with every day. And I think the message has to be clear. This is what is the result of your decision to use drugs and alcohol.
Lieutenant DeBovie, do you see a lot of that at the state police level? People just like Zeke?
There's no doubt. It's a progression where they, steal from somebody else and they steal from their families, and it keeps on going as their addiction gets worse. I think the important thing is this is a individual that other people can relate to. It's not us up here saying this is what's going to happen to you. This happened to this guy's saying, hey, this happened to me, and they get a firsthand knowledge of what this guy went through. And it's not us saying it from experience of seeing him do it, but from the firsthand knowledge, and I think that's really critical.
Yeah, that probably will help.
And it's not a unique story either, because we've got a new county prison that opened a little over 2 years ago. 70% of the people in that prison are there because of drugs, alcohol, abuse. They committed their crimes to get drugs. They committed their crimes while they were under the influence of drugs and alcohol. So these are real people. These are real faces. These are real consequences.
Yeah.
It's an unbelievable number, and I think Judge DeComo sees it in his courtroom every day.
That's why another reason we need Community Awareness Day. As Scott said, we have aggressive enforcement in Armstrong County, in Scott Andressi's office and Pennsylvania State Police. But you can't investigate, prosecute, or incarcerate this problem away, because we built a new jail in 2003 with triple the capacity of the old jail, and it's full.
Oh my goodness.
And 70% of the people in there are in there because of the abuse of alcohol and other drugs. So we need the community, and that's what Community Awareness Day is all about.
Excellent. You know, in that video, they also touched on domestic violence. And Lieutenant DeBovie, I understand that you're on a Violence Against Women task force.
Yes.
Would you please tell us a little about that?
Myself and the DA are on that task force, and we meet once a month, and it's a group of community leaders from all facets of law enforcement to the courts to like Haven. They are on there also, and it's a group that we meet and hash out problems that we see regarding domestic violence, whether it's prosecution or getting assistance for victims of domestic violence. And it's been we have a great working relationship in this county.
Gentlemen, what are some practical tips that people can do?
Judge?
Well, I believe that as far as, just like you saw in the video, the young lady that was a victim of domestic abuse and sexual violence, her problem started in a dating relationship when she was 15. So to the young girls out there today, I'd like to say you have a right to have a healthy relationship. Don't become a victim, okay? Go to someone, go to your parents, teachers, religious leaders, and talk to them. To the batterer, most batterers were abused when they were young or witnessed abusive relationships. So to these batterers, we have to get them the help they need so they don't commit a crime and they don't hurt other individuals in our community. We'll have to raise the level of education to see what goes on in our community and bring it to the attention of the proper authorities.
Lieutenant DeBovie, from the state police level, what can people do?
As the judge was saying, people need to get involved and be willing to stand up behind the people who are the victims or the people who witness something happen. They need to be able to become involved and pick up the phone and call us and say, hey, I saw this, and be willing to give their name and not just say, hey, this happened, and hang up, and then we have no way to follow it up. So you got to be willing to stand up for what you know is right and and defend yourselves. It's not going to go away without everybody getting involved.
And giving specific information, sure, to the 911 dispatcher or whoever
That's
it
correct.
is that you're reporting to.
We need specifics, descriptions, plates, but that's great, but we need follow-up too. You need people willing to come forward and say, hey, I swear that this did happen.
The testimony part,
Yes.
coming to court.
Yes.
Not an easy thing for a lot of people.
No, it takes a lot of time sometimes.
How about you, Scott?
I think one of the key, regardless of the type of crime, is taking control of our communities, becoming involved, help the police. No matter how many police officers there are in the streets, they're not enough. We always need more eyes, we always need more ears. Take advantage of the 866 toll-free number to report drug activity. Become involved in a Crime Watch program in your local community. If you don't have one yet, be a leader and start a Crime Watch community. Become involved in your schools. There are kids out there that need help. Programs like Big Brothers Big Sisters, programs like Haven. These folks need volunteers. They need the community's help if they're going to be successful. Become involved, because if we're involved, we're not giving crime a safe haven, and that's the message we have to send.
Judge, I understand another thing that people can do is safeguard their prescription drugs. Would you speak to that a little?
Yeah, I believe that people should always safeguard their prescription painkillers especially, because the natural progression that we've seen over the years is tobacco, then to alcohol, then to marijuana, then to prescription drug abuse. Once someone gets to prescription drug abuse, only two things can happen. Once again, addiction or death. Now, many of the kids that start using prescription drugs steal them from their parents or their grandparents. So we have to safeguard those types of drugs and possibly prevent an addiction.
That's true. Well, as we look at Community Awareness Day as an overall strategy, would perhaps all of you like to comment about what tangible benefits we've seen from the Community Awareness Day movements? I don't know who would like to field that.
I think Community Awareness Day has been a success. It's going to be a greater success. And the reason we can see success in our programs is because we've had more people come to us with tips on drug use, with tips on domestic violence. Scott Andressi's 800 number has been ringing off the wall in Armstrong County with tips. The state police have increased the amount of information they're getting from the citizens. We've had crime watch groups sprout up in different areas of Armstrong County. So we're all getting on the bandwagon for prevention. And one thing I'd like to say about our county, although Scott, myself, and the lieutenant are guests here today, it's not about us. It's about a total county commitment for prevention and for the protection of our youth and community. That's what Community Awareness Day is all about.
Basically means we need all 70,000 residents of Armstrong County helping in some way.
Everybody can do something for Community Awareness Day.
Definitely.
And if
It's
they can't
important.
find anything to do, call us. We'll find them something to do.
It's important to give credit where credit is due. When we started this program 2 years ago, we had an idea of where we wanted it to head. And quite frankly, I don't think we could have ever envisioned how it was going to grow. And as Judge DeComo indicated, it's not about us. It's about getting our message out. And the school district has been a big part of that. It's programs like this. It's churches inviting us in to give presentations. It's the district being willing to let us communicate to the residents through their newsletter. And
Glad to help.
the ability to contact 45,000 people is directly because of a good cooperative relationship in this county.
True. One thing that we would be remiss if we didn't mention the reality tour. And I was wondering if you would speak to that, Scott, and tell us about how the reality tour is helping in this overall strategy to take back our communities.
The reality tour started about 8 months ago in the planning process, and typical of Armstrong County, it's been a success story because when we first started, we didn't have people, we didn't have money, we didn't have a place to have it. And within about 2 months, everything came together. The volunteers, the money, and the location. We are now planning for our third reality tour, which was held on December 13th. The next reality tour will be held on the second Tuesday in January. It's a hard-hitting look at what drugs can do to the user, the abuser, their family, and their community. I would encourage anyone with kids, anyone who is concerned about drugs in our community, take advantage of this free program. It's hard-hitting and it sends an incredible message.
It's almost a real-life look at behind the scenes in the life of an addicted heroin
That's exactly what it
user.
is. And it's through the cooperative efforts of the hospital, Armstrong Indiana Drug and Alcohol Commission, Judge DeComo, the Pennsylvania State Police, and most especially a host of volunteers, many of whom are from the Armstrong School District, students who have volunteered their time.
Sure.
It's an incredible program.
Yes, if anyone is interested, I would encourage them to get in touch with Arc Manor Addiction Recovery Services in Katanning, because they are basically taking registrations, and these fill up very quickly. They're limited to 50 per session.
That's correct.
And so please call Arc Manor or visit their website to register if you're interested in coming to the Armstrong Reality Tour. Well, that's our show for today. Gary, Scott, and Tom, I appreciate your time, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for sharing about Community Awareness Day. I would also like to thank the Community Awareness Day partners, including Joe Ellen Bowman from Haven Incorporated and Kay Owen from Arc Manor, just to name a few. Please join us again next week for another look at the Armstrong School District. For more information about the district, please check out the website the next time you're surfing the internet. Take care.